I think that a lot of people, like, they think, hey, how am I going to build a really great company culture? And they start checking some of these boxes, and it just doesn't seem to work.
We are absolutely not your boss. That person on the phone is your boss. And if you treat them poorly and they fire us, they fire all of us.
I always say that, hurting people hurt people and are easily hurt by people. And, when you bring that hurt into the workplace and it's unhealed and it's unresolved, or even if we can't heal it, we can acknowledge it, we can empathize with it.
You need to have a lot of flexibility for the human aspect of everybody that works with each other.
We don't know all of the things that our folks are carrying with them on a daily basis. Well, good morning and welcome to Coffee Break with Jake. I'm Jake, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Randy Elrad with Crime Prevention Security Systems in Gainesville, Florida, and also servicing kind of the whole Central Florida region here. Randy is really just one of the most fun people, in the business, and she's an awesome business leader. And so, Randy, I want to thank you for being here with us today.
It is totally my pleasure. Yep. I am
Awesome.
very excited that you wanted to hear my perspective for the last 51 years in business.
Well, we're so glad to have you here. And for those of you that may be new to the call, we host this call every Friday at 11 a.m. And the purpose of the call is to bring together security professionals from all over the country. And we've got some few folks from out of the country, so I guess all over the world, to join us and share best practices, talk about challenges. And selfishly, I host this call every Friday because the most important things I've learned from other people. And so I host this to learn from each and every one of you. If you have questions throughout the call, feel free to throw them into the chat, and we'll hope to get to those before we finish up. This is also recorded, so you can watch or listen to Coffee Break with Jake on YouTube or any of the major podcast platforms. So, Randy, again, I'm so glad to have you here. I
Thank you.
know a little bit about crime prevention, but if you would tell us a little bit about the crime prevention story and your history there.
Absolutely. So, in 1975, I was a special education teacher, and my husband was a microbiologist in rheumatoid arthritis. And I grew up in a big family, and I was never home alone. And so here we are up in Gainesville, and he'd have to go to the lab in the middle of the night, and I would be terrified being home alone. And when you work with special needs kids, you really have to be in a great mood. You have to be on your game, and you can't be grumpy and tired. So I said, I got to find something that'll help me sleep when you're not here. So Johnny and I came across this sound discriminator machine that you plugged in, and it detected high frequency noises like somebody breaking and entering, and it would have it would turn on different things, and the second breaking and entering noise would set off a siren, and it had a tape dialer that we could actually call into the police stations. And we really loved this product. We started selling it, and I said, if this makes me feel like I could get a good night's sleep, it's got to help a zillion other people. And we had a guy come to interview with us to be an installer, and we said, "Oh no, we don't do anything like that. We just, set the little machine." He said, "Well, I've owned a company for 10 years and I'm going back to college. I've got a wife and two kids. If you hire me, I'll really teach you how to be in the alarm business." And so in 1975, we asked this guy, Vern, "What are you going to college for?" He said, "Computer science." We said, "Are you kidding? There's no future in that." And he said, "Well, I want you to know you're never going to make any money in the alarm business." So thank God we were both wrong because
Yeah.
he got his bachelor's, master's, and PhD. His wife got her bachelor's, master's, and PhD, and he ended up being a big consultant in the industry. And we're the 65th largest alarm company in the United States. So,
Wow.
yeah, so we were both wrong.
That's such an amazing kind of origin story. I love to, I always love when hear of these companies, really great companies starting out, from somebody having a need for a system. And I always think of, I think of Wayne Alarm and, and how Ralph had kind of started in I think making them in the basement. And then I think, of you guys putting in this basic machine and then realizing, hey, this is something, there's a business here. And my goodness, how much you've grown since then to be, on the SDM 100 and, number 65. That's quite an accomplishment. And when you think about your company today, Randy, what makes you the most proud?
I think the thing that makes me the most proud is the number of people that we have employed and provided an income and a lifestyle over the 51 years we've been in business, and the amazing amount of people that we have protected and businesses that we've secured and provided fire systems and access controlled and just make everybody's life have so much more peace of mind.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I always find that, a core to companies that have a really great culture and just seem to have like an intangible mojo. They're very mission driven, right? It's about serving their community, providing, really awesome products and services like, our industry provides, but also, creating some really awesome jobs, right? Creating awesome jobs for awesome people that we get to work with. And that's really what I wanted to dig into with you here today is, building a really great workplace. Because I think you guys have done such an amazing job, even in the Facebook group, when I had posted that we were going to be having this conversation, some of your employees popped on there
Oh,
and said how much they love working there, right? And
yeah.
I think that's you know, having a lot of customers and growing as a business, that's rewarding. But gosh, to have folks that really truly love their job and appreciate their job, I think that's amazing. I think that's obviously very indicative of what a great workplace you all have built there. So I have to ask you, when you hear the phrase great workplace, what does that mean to you?
Our culture is very important to us, and we have like a real strict gossip policy. We absolutely forbid people from creating negativity by gossiping, and so we have a hierarchy of rules that if you're upset with someone, rather than tell other people, you confront that person, and then if you don't get anywhere with them, then you go to their manager, and if you don't get anywhere with them, then you can always come to the family. So we always have an open door policy with everybody, my husband, the kids, everybody. It's an open door policy. We do treat everybody like family. We like to have events at my house, and I like to cook and bake for people, and see them in a social setting with their kids. And so we have a summer swim party, and then we have an awards banquet in the around the holidays to celebrate everybody. And then we do a lot of things to acknowledge people monthly and birthdays and employee of the week and employee of the month, and we want to make sure that everybody gets the recognition that they deserve.
I love, there's so much to unpack there, right? I mean, we talk about, and I love that you started with, kind of eliminating a lot of the negativity, that's within an organization because you could throw parties for your staff, you could recognize them, you could invite them over the house, but if there's like negativity breeding within, the organization and you have folks that have all these, kind of unresolved issues with each other, oftentimes it's the eye roll at the pizza party, right? Like people, if you don't solve for the negativity, even the most wonderful, nice things, or even the little things, can be met with cynicism, right? And I think it's so
For
cool. I,
sure.
I love that. I love that you lead the conversation with that. And then, the recognition obviously is an important piece of this, being able to build rapport and relationship. And I think that a lot of people like they think, hey, how am I going to build a really great company culture? And they start checking some of these boxes. and it just doesn't seem to work, right? And so I'd ask you, what do you think that most people get wrong about a good building a good workplace culture?
I think that, having structure in your system is very important, but if the structure prohibits people from really getting to know each other and interact with each other on a positive basis and really dives deep into people's lives, then it just puts a a wall between your employees and management and the staff and everybody. So I think when you set up a company and you want to have it structured, you need to have a lot of flexibility for the human aspect of everybody that works with each other.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I think sometimes people look at the structure, their org chart as, hey, this person is superior and this person is inferior, or subordinate,
Right,
right?
right.
And then like, hey, like, if you're just kind of look at things through that lens, like, does this person that might be, subordinate to this person that may not that and that person may answer to, another level of management. um it's important to have some structure, but I think to your point, especially when you talk about the open door policy, like, I love that. Like, try to resolve it with your coworker. If you can't resolve it with your coworker, escalate to a manager. And then if you need to, and forgive me, I'm gonna go like kind of mobster here. If you need to bring it to the family, you bring it to the family,
That's right.
and the family will
That's
take care of these
yeah,
things. I love that.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's nobody swimming with the fishes because of like a workplace disagreement, though. Yeah,
And
and we
I
can't talk about that on a recorded
right,
call.
right. It's a wonderful thing to be able to have people for the last 51 years feel comfortable enough to come and chit chat with us about things that they think would improve our company, things that they don't like about other people, things that they don't like the way we handle stuff. We we really welcome people's input, and the nice thing about being a family owned and operated company, when people come to work for us from other big companies, they go, it would be really great if you could do this. And we go, wow, that sounds really cool. Let's try it. And we just implement it. And they go, what? You know, the last company I worked for, it would take 3 years to get this up the ladder of the chain to make any change. But if something's a good idea, we can stop and turn on a dime.
Do you think what was that always an intentional? Because it's interesting. You talk about people that had prior experiences, and then they come into like your organization. They're like, oh my gosh, like this is totally different. Was that intentional? Did you do that intentionally from the start, or did that kind of evolve over time?
When it started, it was just me and Johnny. We would sell and install, so I became very proficient in being a conduit bender. And being that I am a special ed teacher, people pick their careers based on their own problems. So when I would bend some conduit, Johnny would go, "That's backwards." I said, "Well, hello." No, maybe I'm conduit dyslexic. What can I tell you? So,
Oh my goodness. Well,
so
I think it's interesting, like, because what you talk about seems very, very like it's come to you guys very naturally. And I think that's a big piece of I think a big piece of that is your personality and Johnny's personality, like, just the way that you interact with other people, right? Like, aside from the organization, I've always really enjoyed the way that you interact with other people and build relationship with people. And I think that that's something that is not that's not just values on the wall, right? And
right.
I think a lot of people, they put their values on the wall and their mission statement. I think the real question is whether people actually feel that in the building, and people feel that outside of the building, and
Yes.
customers can see it and vendors can see it. Um, how would you recommend to folks that are, again, really just, and I want to step back. I think one of the biggest challenges we have in our industry, And really just in general, like any business leaders I talk to, it's so hard to find great people. And
Oh,
it's,
for
you know,
sure.
and when you do, you want to hang on to them. And so, you know, I have folks that sometimes they explain lots and lots of issues hiring people, and then lots of issues with their existing people, and then lots and lots of issues with retaining people. And I always think of this, oh, and I'm going to totally mess it up. But there is this in one of John Maxwell's books. He tells a story about this guy, you know, sitting outside of town, and there's travelers coming by, and the first traveler comes to him and says, "Hey, you know, what are the people like in the city ahead?" And he says to him, "Well, like, hey, what were the people like where you just left?" And they said, "Oh, they were, you know, just incredible, kind, industrious, hardworking, honest people." And he said, "You'll find the people in the next town over to be the same." And then he says, you know, another traveler comes up and he says, "Hey, you know, what's it like with these folks?" And he says the same question, "What was like where you just left?" And he says, "Man, everybody was, you know, these people were criminals. They were shady. They were lazy, dishonest." And he says, "I think you're going to find the people to be the same in the next town over." And I think a big, again, you know, I think a big challenge that we find with leaders is not just how they build their company, structure their organization, but so much how they see people and how they see the world. And again, I think that's a big piece of from my perspective, it seems like that's a big piece of your success has been
Yep.
just how you kind of look at the world.
Yep.
And and so I'd ask you, like, if you have, you know, you're talking to another leader, you know, another security company leader, any other business leader, how do you, aside from changing, you know, your whole perspective in psychology, which is that's hard, right? But
Yep.
what could you recommend to them to help them shape workplace culture and just kind of some practical ways?
Sure. One of the things that I feel is real important in conversations and in de-escalating situations is to kind of do stuff humorously. Okay, so um, if you're angry about something and then somebody says something funny that makes you laugh or, chuckle, you can't anger and happy and funny can't live together. And so funny takes over. And so I think the thing that we strive with to have everybody understand is I don't care if you live in a single wide trailer or you live in a multi-million dollar mansion, you and your family and your valuables are as important as the next person. We do not, we don't. It's really funny because sometimes when people have prejudged someone based on where they live or the condition of their home, and then we find out that, we sold them a security system with a 39.95 monitoring, and then they went somewhere else and bought $80,000 worth of entertainment stuff. And we're like, "What? Why did you even mention that we do that?" And they are, "No, are you kidding? They wouldn't. We never thought they would, do that."
Yeah.
So we really strive on the positive idea that if you look at people and their life and their family and everything they love, no matter how much money they make, it doesn't matter. We all love our families and everything that we work for. And our mission is to protect no matter how much you have or how little you have. We want to protect you and your family and your life and your possessions and your business and everything that you love and work for.
You know, I
So,
love that. I think that's so important. And oftentimes, you know, I think that the way that the folks on our team interact with, and even a lot of times their perspective with customers, it's so much shaped by the way that leadership sees it, you know,
yes.
and I think sometimes even, you know, requires leadership to take an active role in kind of helping to model
Yes.
perspective and the way that they see customers. And, you know, I always say it's as an example, sometimes we have high maintenance customers. And
Many of them.
yeah,
Yes,
of
yes, many
course.
of them. My
And my
favorites.
yeah, well, and I think it's an opportunity, right? It's you and I might see that sometimes as our favorite. Sometimes folks on the front line might be like, "Hey, this person drive me bonkers," right? But I always kind of say, "Hey, you know, does this person help us be better?" Right? Like they're very needy, but are the things that they're asking for ultimately reasonable things? And is it helping us to grow and be better? That sometimes that takes like an actual kind of perspective shift. You have to have that conversation. Like, yes, that guy's high maintenance, but he's also a super nice guy. How do what are some of the standards that you and John try to model for, your team
So,
as
yeah.
leaders?
So, my office uh, gives me all the really angry, irate customers, which all of us have.
Sure.
And my
I don't
favorite,
have any. I want to be
yeah,
clear. I've never had an angry customer. They all love us. We never mess up. No mistakes.
that's awesome. So, well, and people will call here and then they'll, have me follow up and reach out to them or take the call and they'll say, I want you to know what your system is doing and your alarm is doing this and your alarm. And my thing to them is, who owns your toilet? And they go, what? Go, who owns your toilet? They go, well, I own my toilet. I'm like, well, we're just like your toilet. The plumber installed your toilet, but you own it. We installed your alarm, but you own it. It's your system. It's
Yeah.
not mine. And
Well, and
so
I love that because it's funny. Like, again, we kind of talk about like, kind of using humor sometimes to de-escalate. I love the analogy of a toilet because like nobody's expecting that question. Nobody's expecting their alarm company to be like, well, who owns your toilet? And you're like,
what?
I think I do. You know what, Randy? Actually, to be honest, once I'm finished making 5 more payments, I'll own my toilet.
There you
We're
go.
still on a payment plan. But no, I love that. I love that perspective. And I think that even though sometimes you have to help customers to be reasonable and understand some of these things, right, from the right point of view, um, you also have to demonstrate empathy and caring, right, and caring for the customer who's up, who's got some type of real legitimate issue.
Sure.
And how do your employees see that crime prevention leadership genuinely cares about customers and genuinely cares about them? How do they see that on a day to day?
So we like to treat our employees with the same dignity and respect as we treat our customers. And we ask our team all the time, "Who's your boss?" And they'll go, "Oh, you, Johnny, Georgia, whoever." And I go, "Absolutely not. We are absolutely not your boss. That person on the phone is your boss. And if you treat them poorly and they fire us, they fire all of us."
Yeah.
And people like to network bad stuff. And we really pride ourselves in having great interactions with our customers. And if people get out of line, I mean, we've had customers that start, using just awful language to the one of my sweet people that work here. And our response to that is, you don't have to be abused verbally by anyone. And
Yeah.
so please tell them, I'm really sorry you feel that way. And it is my responsibility to end this call because I need for you to calm down where we can talk nicely to each other and with respect. And then they hang up. But you
Yeah,
got to
of
hang up
course, in a
nice.
huff and a
Yeah.
puff. And I think that's such a great example, right? Like we care about our customers, we want to serve our customers, but when a customer takes to attacking an employee, we can demonstrate care for our customers, but we shouldn't demonstrate, an unhealthy relationship with our customers. That means that they could treat our employees any which way they want. I actually had nobody should email me a nasty gram at night. I don't know if I'd had a couple of glasses of wine or what, Randy, but some dude sent the nastiest message about the nicest employee. I mean, this guy,
Yeah.
was so, but my response at 11:30 at night was like, "Hey, we're going to resolve the issue for you, but I want you to know we're closing your account." Right? And that was it, right? And because he'd sent it to me and he'd sent it to our entire team, like
Yeah.
everybody. And
Wow.
you cannot, again, we have to make sure we serve the customer, but we have to make sure our employees know that we value them. I love that you
Yes.
mirror that. And so, the crime prevention is obviously, as we talked about with you and Johnny and Georgia, it's a
Jessica.
family business.
Yep.
In more ways than one. How do you think being a family-owned business really shapes the workplace?
Well, we started the company way before we had children, so we we didn't think we were going to have a family-owned and operated company. We started this because um, we the what we were doing with the product that we were selling solved so many emotional issues with people. And then when we really got into the real nitty-gritty of being in the alarm industry, um, our mission, the focus was really preserving life and property, and it means the world to us. And so crime prevention is kind of my first child. And so when my kids were growing up, they grew up in the company. They from the time they knew the alphabet, they filed my folders, and so I have everything's under either the or a. the 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 First Baptist
Yeah.
Church, a beauty supply shop is, so
That's
people go,
amazing.
where do we find so and so's file? I go, look under the or a. if it go
That
if it
that's
goes back, yes, I'm
that's
sorry.
amazing.
Yeah.
One of my first roles working for my folks was I did filing for them, and when you described that, I like had a flashback to thinking about like, hey, what do I file this under? Because do you include do you include that's there's
Yeah.
there's some folks on the call that are like, hey, like I gotta look at my files right now, but I love that either the or a. That's amazing.
So one of the things I want to mention is that a lot of times when people call me or call the company to complain about how somebody in my company was awful to them, I let my employees know that I am always going to side with the customer. And what I say to them is, "Oh my God, that is awful. That is the worst thing I've ever heard. I'm firing that person." And the people go, "Wait, wait, wait. No,
Yeah.
it's not that bad." And I go, "No, really, that's a terrible thing that happened to you. I am mortified. That guy is or gal is out of here." And they
Yeah.
will go, "No, no, I want you to know I didn't mean to have them lose their job." Then they start defending this person. And so it's really funny how using reverse psychology on people who are, have a little bit of a problem with people. Once you turn the table and you're siding with them, that you're right, that was awful and that should have never happened and I'm never going to let that happen again and I'm getting rid of that person. And they like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, I didn't, I didn't want to ruin somebody's life,"
Right.
And it really is an amazing turnaround that people will make when emotionally and verbally you side with them, even if they're not right.
Sure.
There's no right and wrong. I just want to make you feel like you're heard, and I
Yeah.
want you to feel like I'm going to do something about it. And then if you don't like how I'm going to, treat the situation with getting rid of that employee, they're like, "Oh my God, no, it wasn't that bad. And thank you for taking this call. And, tell them I'm sorry." And it's really amazing,
Oh, that's because people are nice in Gainesville. I'll tell you, I tried that shtick with a guy up north. I
And,
tried it, and I
and
was
he
like,
said, "Good,
you want me to fire? Like, I'm gonna fire this guy. And he's like, good, do it. And I'm like,
do it."
I'm like, oh
Wow.
no,
I
like, what do
know.
we do? This guy's
That's
not
not
very
happening.
nice. But
Say, "No, I think I'm gonna fire you." Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Um,
one of the funny calls I had is there was a family, a guy and his wife who are my age, in their 70s, and they're building their last house, and they've built many houses, and they've always put in central vac, and they put in distributed audio, surround sound, every aspect of security, entertainment. It was, ramped up house. Well, now they're building another house, and it's their forever home. And I said, I'm sure you want to have, really great security. Nap, we don't care anymore. We're old. If somebody breaks in and kills us, we're okay with that. I said, "Oh my God, okay. Well, I know that, we're in the thunder capital of the world. You don't want to get, caught on fire with our thunderstorms. Nope, we don't care. We can burn to death. Doesn't matter." So my office is hearing my thing, okay?
Yeah.
And then I said, "Well, if this is your forever home, I know you want to have the healthiest indoor air quality with a central vac and audio and TVs and, really ramp it up for entertainment." They said, "Nope, we're down. We don't need to. We don't care if we watch one TV, that's all we need, and we don't want central vac anymore. We'll just get a maid once a month to vacuum." And I'm like, "Well," they said, I don't care if we die from the pollution. We don't care if we die from this." I said, "Oh my God, why don't you just pump cyanide in the house?" My office was like, "Oh my God, she's crazy."
Yeah. If nothing else, Randy will charge you to come to the house and kill you. Like, it's like you're on the way out. I can help you with that. I can help
What the
you.
hell? Yeah. So I want you to know they laughed, and they still didn't buy anything, but the house was
Amazing.
just an empty shell for them to live the rest of their life in.
You
But
you
that was
could
their
have
choice.
you probably like you could have called down to the funeral home and sold them like a prepaid funeral service, I think at that point. They were ready to buy
Absolutely.
that baby.
Yes. That's
So,
so funny. Yeah.
one of the things I've always it's been interesting to me within family businesses and having been in that, so many times employees really feel like family, and now we all have family, and having family means that we like some folks maybe sometimes their personality a little bit more than
Right.
somebody else. And so I think particularly in family businesses where relationships can be so like family oriented, how do you balance kind of creating that sense of family and family values without creating a sense of favoritism?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, so it's very hard to not have a kind of a hierarchy of favoritism. I mean, we've been in business 51 years. I have people that have worked here for 43 years and 40 years and 35 years. And so those people that have really dedicated their life to our company, not my company, our company, and to the mission of what we want to do to our neighbors, our family, our friends, and our community. It's okay to have a better relationship with some people than you do with others because of longevity, and having them be a part of all of our ups and downs in our 50, 45 years of their time with us or whatever. So you will have some favorites, and it's okay because they've earned that right.
I love that I love your just real honesty and transparency with that, because so many times I think we try to say the politically correct thing. Oh,
Oh,
we
not
don't have
everybody.
favorites. Your parents will tell you that they don't have favorites growing up, but by the time
Mhm.
you're an adult, the ranking order of you and your siblings. You've figured it out. And
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
it's just a reality. It doesn't mean you don't love everybody, and I think in the workplace, it doesn't mean that you don't value everybody and what they bring to the company
Right.
and their
It doesn't change,
perspective.
right. Doesn't
Yeah,
change
and
your respect at all.
I
It's not about respect. It's about how how much you've all gone through together in the time that we've all grown this company. And so, a lot of times the people that have been here for decades, have a better relationship with us. They feel way more comfortable. Plus, when we started this company, we added one employee on at a time. We didn't have, you know, 80 employees, we just had one. And then the next year we added a couple and a couple and a couple. And then after 51 years, you end up with a really nice group of people, and we're in 3 branches, so we have Orlando and Jacksonville, and you're always, adding on new people, and, we have a policy with our company that if you quit properly, I don't ever wanna steal anybody's dream, and if somebody
Yeah.
has a job offer from another company and you give me 2 weeks' notice and you quit properly, if you find out that that job of your dreams is a nightmare, you are always welcome to come back here. But if you put a Post-it note on on someone's desk and say, "Out of here," you are never coming back to work for us.
I think that sometimes that people they have a chance to work for an organization and they don't necessarily have experience with other companies.
Right.
And it's that thought of like, hey, you don't know what you've got until it's gone, right?
Absolutely.
And so I love that kind of perspective of like, hey, you know what? Go chase your dreams. But if you want to come back home afterwards, as long as you've done it the right way.
Yep.
Someone quit one time that was they called me in the morning and was like, I'm gonna be done at 1 o'clock today. And I'm like, okay, like that, like God bless you, be well. That door is hard shut, like
Right.
like
Right.
that's
Yeah.
done, right?
Yeah.
But I love that perspective of not making people feel like, hey, look, you can't go check that out, and you can't come back. And I think, as you've grown your team, creating opportunities within
Oh, yeah.
has also been a piece of kind of retention and employee growth. And
Yeah.
so, can you talk to us about some examples maybe of
Sure.
promoting from within or
Sure.
seeing and maybe how you identify that potential in people that may not be in that seat today but might grow to be there?
Absolutely. So I tell everybody we're like a big bus. Okay. There's a lot of seats on this bus. It's a big bus. And I had an installer that had worked with me since he was 17 till he was, I don't know, about 20 years later. He said, "I'm quitting. I am burned out. I am not going to do this anymore." And I said, "Well, don't quit." I said, "Change your seat on this bus." And he goes, "What could I be?" I said, "Well, do you love what we install?" "Yeah." "Do you love what it does for people?" "Yeah, I love it." I said, "Well, let's have you go into sales." He goes, "Oh, I could never sell." I want you to know that next year he sold like $1 million worth of systems, and every year he sells millions of dollars in systems. And it's only because he loves what we do, what what we do for others, and how it changes their life and their peace of mind. And and we tell people, if this is not the right seat, don't get off the bus and leave. Just switch seats, try something new. And so we like to work with people. We do promote from within, and sometimes we promote people right out of their capability. And then we tell them, "Hey, listen, if this is too stressful, let's take you back where you were. You
Sure.
don't you don't have to endure this if it's not the right fit for you." So it's
Well,
okay to make those adjustments.
I love that example of a success story, and I think that the reality is that being a technician is a hard job. It's a physically demanding job.
Yeah.
And, I think about a couple weeks ago, I threw my back out taking my kid out of a water slide, right? And like I'm not old enough, I think, for my body to be falling apart like this. But the reality of it is we do get older.
Right.
We do find ourselves in like, hey, we maybe can't do that thing, right?
Right.
Um, and how cool is it to be a company where you could say like, "Hey, look, that's not my thing, but I can go be successful here," or at least giving them that opportunity, right? Because I will say this, not every technician will be a good salesperson. In
No,
fact,
that's for sure. Yeah.
a lot of them
Right.
would be terrible, but you see the potential in this person and you see, hey, this is a great person. Let me change your seat. And I also love that you mentioned like, the ability to say, hey, you know what? We tried this and I
Not
don't
a good
think
fit.
that's right. It's not a
Right.
good
Not a
fit.
good fit. Mhm.
And you said something very, very interesting. You said you don't have to endure this.
Right.
And I think that a lot of managers and leaders think of somebody in the wrong seat and think about how it's hurting the company,
Right.
but they don't think about how it's hurting that person, right?
Yeah,
Like
that person.
that's that's such
Yeah,
a I think that's such a great window into kind of your
sure.
perspective because
Right.
you recognize, hey, this person is miserable here, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And I think
Exactly.
that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
um, we talk about promoting people within. You guys have, it's about 80 employees.
Well, we're probably at around 60 now. We have had as many as 125. So
Wow.
we also had, a central station in Atlanta, and so we have gone from, me and Johnny to 125, 130 people, and then have vacillated based on uh, the industry, the economy, and all kinds of things. So we're
Sure.
at around maybe 60 employees right now.
Well, you say it's manageable, and I think to myself, my goodness, that's a lot of people to be supporting on a daily basis. And you've got technicians in the field, you have all kinds of folks that are within the company. At 60 people, you could not possibly talk to every single person every single day
Yeah.
and be able to support them. And so talk to me about how much of, from your perspective, how much of leadership is about giving people support and how much of it is about giving them kind of some space and autonomy. How do you
Sure.
balance that?
Yeah. Well, none of my family are micromanagers. I have told my children, I told my husband, if you want, I can teach little kids and I can manage kids. But when it comes to an adult, when I tell you, if you do this, this is how you will be successful and this is what you can accomplish, and then they don't do those things, I am not going to, if they're it we like performance-based employment, We set what their standards are, what we expect from them, and we give them lots and lots and lots of opportunities and coaching and consoling and and help and then, if that individual just isn't the right fit for the company, for our growth and our survival, then we have to part ways. And we always do it in a really nice way. We don't ever like to burn a bridge or harm anybody psychologically.
Sure.
This may not be your fit in our company, but you may be great in some other field or some other company. But in this company and what we expect, it's just not meeting any of our needs, their needs
Yeah.
financially and my needs for profitability and growth and relationships.
Yeah, I really like that perspective. I had a friend that's a leader of a large organization, and I explained to him that one of the biggest challenges for me is, having to terminate somebody because they're just not, the right fit. And you try, and they just and what he explained to me is that similar to what you described, he says, um, sometimes you have to release somebody
Yes,
to go get the best next opportunity for them, right?
absolutely.
The
Yeah,
right place for them. And I love that, you kind of look at it as, hey, we're not trying to burn a bridge here. We want the best for you. Obviously, we need to look out for the company's best interest, but we want the best for you too. And
yeah,
and I think that's a people first
yeah,
mindset that
yeah,
and I think that people first mindset that extends beyond the walls of CPSS and
yeah,
it extends into the community and most tangibly it extends into the way that your folks treat your customers, right? With this people first perspective. And I want to talk about that because we've talked about, kind of more of an internal aspect here of
yeah.
building a great workplace culture, but I want to talk a little bit about some of the external here and how it impacts customer service. So, how connected is leadership with shaping that customer service piece, and how your team treats customers? And I want to back up and just say, how much do you think the way that you treat it, your employees translates into how they treat customers?
Okay, that's a very multiple uh
It's my
faceted
ADHD. I'm,
question.
I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm glad you have a background with special needs, folks. I have some
Yeah.
special needs here,
Yeah,
Randy. You
yeah, I
could just
got you.
take the last question. Just the
Okay,
last
well,
question.
so I do believe that people relate. to customers the way they are treated at work. But people have a lot of other influencers in their life. You can have a terrible day at home, come to work, and everybody here be really nice to you, but your day was pretty screwed up at home. And that may limit your patience with somebody that you're dealing with in an installation or a service call or a billing call or whatever. There's so many different aspects of people's lives. It's, just because we want to create a real positive work environment, we can't control all the other variables of family members getting sick. There's accidents, there's kids, there's money problems. There's so many things that weigh on people. And so we try and, help people get through whatever it is that is interfering with how they're relating to people, and maybe give them some counseling how to separate home, family, elderly parents and being sick. I mean, so many things happen in people's lives, and it's just a, very difficult thing to make sure that we provide the best environment to keep them emotionally healthy at work, because
You
that's all
know,
we can do.
that's all we can do. Is such an interesting, kind of way to look at it. Is it seems like not a big thing, right? Like, but what I hear and what you're describing is an abundance of empathy, right? An
Yeah, yeah,
abundance of empathy. You describe all of these scenarios that they may be going through, and you can't fix the fact that mom or dad are sick, and you can't
right,
fix the fact that, their wife lost their job, and you can't
right.
fix all these things, but
You may not even
it's
know about them. They may
yes.
not tell you, and they come to work and they're, like, distraught and upset and angry, and they don't tell you, "Hey, listen, this is everything I'm going through," they're just maybe snap at somebody or say something rude to somebody, and then we get a call, and then they're
Yeah.
gonna that person's gonna tell everybody they know that we're rude and we're oh, but
Yeah.
you just have to. We just discussed in our sales meeting that Georgia went to a thing with the chamber, and one of the big things that the chamber and this county is focusing on is mental health. I mean, it's something that really affects every aspect of our life. And, you know, maybe what we'll do is tell our employees all the services that Georgia saw through the chamber. In the event they're having any issues, there's all these services available to help them through traumatic times in their life. And that will create a better work life.
Oh, I think that's so great. I always say that, hurting people hurt people and are easily hurt by people. And, when you bring that hurt into the workplace and it's unhealed and it's unresolved, or even if we can't heal it, we can acknowledge it, we can empathize with it. I do want to give a shout out,
Oh,
to an organization called, Corporate Chaplains of America,
oh
which
wow.
we got connected with,
Right.
a couple years ago, and for the very same reason. We don't know all of the things that our folks are carrying with them on a daily basis, and so we have a non-denominational corporate chaplain that calls on our employees, checks in with them, and when they have some of these real issues and they need to talk to somebody, for it's free
Right.
to them. We pay for
Sure.
it. And we don't know what they talk about, right?
Right.
So,
Oh,
if
for sure.
anybody's listening,
Yeah.
I don't get the scoop from the chaplain. Um, but it's just, it's a
Yeah.
cool way.
That
I
is
had one
awesome.
employee, yeah, they were struggling financially, and this guy helped connect them with resources, and so,
Wow.
yeah, just
Yeah.
for anybody on the call, you want to
Yeah.
serve your folks, it's definitely worth checking out. Now, we
Yeah.
talk about I want to talk about employee recognition real quick, and just recognition in general. First, for the company, because you guys have been. I walked in the office a few weeks ago, and I saw in Orlando all the plaques for SDM 100, and you've received a lot of recognition over the years, for just being such a great and growing company. But did being named the best place to work feel a little different
Well,
from some of those other awards?
absolutely. I mean, every one of the awards that we get is a tremendous testimony of the people that work here and the people that we serve. They if those didn't jive together, we could never have the kind of referral basis that my customers provide us for growth and have the retention that we have with our entire staff. But some of the other things that we have just loved in the awards that we won have been Ethics in Business Award from the Gainesville Rotary Club. We were featured on the cover of SDM magazine, and I mean, just things like that. I mean, are amazingly special, and especially when they look at us for what we do for other people. We are extremely involved in charities and charitable organizations. We try to raise money and donate money and support all kinds of things from Stop Children's Cancer to the Ronald McDonald House. We have prepared some meals there, and just everything that we do. One of our big thrusts is to find a cure for dystonia with Tyler's Hope. But we are involved in so many different charitable events, and our participation has probably been the best growth stimulus is to see that we are much more than just making money. We're about helping others.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I think that, in the grind of the day to day, it's you need to recognize that what you're doing as a person and what your organization is doing as a whole is more meaningful, at least for me, and it seems for you, needs to be more meaningful than just the numbers, right? I mean,
Right,
we
right.
want to be able to do some good stuff. And
Yep.
I do want to talk about really quickly, very, very
Sure.
quickly.
Yep.
A key piece to what you talked about in the very beginning was that y'all recognize
Oh,
employees.
sure. Uh-huh.
Could you give me just a quick little,
Sure.
insight into how you recognize some of your, most
Sure.
shining stars?
Well, we recognize the different divisions of my company, whether it's the technical service office, and we, as a company, as a leadership team, we vote on who was exemplary for the month, and so we at our monthly entire company meeting, which is some virtual and some in house, we acknowledge that person and reward them, and then at the end of the year we have a huge awards banquet at my house with a ginormous dinner, and every single person in that has exceeded expectations of their own and ours. There are so many different categories of awards, and they even get funny, the best dressed and the worst driver, which I seem to get that one a lot.
I could give you
Yes.
a run for your money on that one. I'm a pretty bad driver.
Ugh. Well, I think I'm good, but my
Yeah.
family only drives with me when they're drunk.
Yeah.
I'm just the
And what
DD.
do they
Yes.
know? What do they
You
know?
what did they
Yeah,
know?
I'm
Right.
driving
I
here.
bubble wrap all my people in the car.
That's
Yeah, so
amazing.
and we try and give shout outs all the time for accomplishments that everybody has achieved, whether they get an award for it or just a good old boy pat on the back. That's something that we feel is really important.
I think that the awards are such a great physical representation of all the hard work and effort and the mission. But I think sometimes the biggest, most important, accolade is the one that happens quietly behind somebody's back.
Yep.
Nobody knows what
Right.
happened. Nobody even
Sure.
knows, but somebody said something about you or your organization that's very positive. Now, if I was to pull one of your employees aside
Yep.
quietly and say, "Hey, what do you think of crime prevention?" What would you hope that they would say?
Well, I'm pretty confident that they would say that they absolutely love working here and that they may have tried other places for the people that have left my company to go find their dream company. They have all come back and with a whole different attitude on how different our culture is. And I think that every employee that that is here would say we have a really beautiful culture of people that respect each other and acknowledge our successes and fix things that we do wrong. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, and I am probably the biggest mistaker in the company. You know, so, yeah, it's okay.
You
Yeah.
know, Randy, I have no doubt that they would say those things. And I have heard such wonderful things about crime prevention. I want to thank you for being here with us today.
Uh, my
For those
pleasure.
of you again that are joining us and maybe came on late, we have this call every Friday at 11 a.m. I want to thank you for being here, to all of you making time on your Friday. For those of you that do business with us today, I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve you. If you don't do business with us, I'd love to connect with you and talk to you about serving you as your distributor. But whether you do business with us or not, you are always welcome on Coffee Break with Jake,
Oh,
where I get to learn really awesome things from really awesome people like Randy. So, Randy,
thank you.
again, thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here, and
You
I hope
are.
you all have a great weekend.
You too. You are my hero.
Thanks so
Take
much, Randy.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.